Hey there folks, Zane Hyde here, bringing you another episode of Overexplained. Today we're going to be playing Q-Build Zeratul on Garden of Terror. The compositions for the right side is the Ragnaros with the Zeratul offlane, with a Garrosh Stukov Hanzo core, versing a Sylvanas Sonya Johanna Deckard with a TLV double soak. It is going to be imperative that we scale to the mid to late game, as Zeratul is not much of a hero at level 1, if a hero at all, debatably as valuable as the Balog on the enemy TLV side. We are the Q-Build, so we're going to be off for QQ Wormhole potential. Potentially, you can go Seeker in the Dark at level 7 and Vorpal if you're slightly insane. Level 10, we're going to be picking up VP, the best ultimate in the game, debatably. 13 is completely variable. I opt for Shroud of Doom, but you can easily opt for the other two. At 16, Q Upgrade, and at 20, Shadow Mending. At the beginning of the game right here, what we want is for our team to hover in the mid, determine which direction the enemy team is going, and then respond with the trio, while the Ragnaros and the Zeratul deal with the other two lanes. Unfortunately, our Stukov rotates down for some reason. My Hanzo just kind of decides to park mid, which is incorrect. So I V-ping him, hoping that he's going top, and he for some reason heads bottom. I'm going to have to correct that in just a moment, and hopefully once he picks up the gist, our team will have an okay time dealing with the enemy push in the top lane while we stall and wait for our power spikes that we will be able to pick up in the mid to late. Zeratul versus Olaf is a very easy 1v1 here, so I am getting the idea in my head that my siege camp that I'm going to be capping in 1 or 2 minutes from now is going to get quite a bit of value should the enemy TLV fail to rotate either of Eric or Balog to the bottom lane. I'm going to rotate back into mid right here as Ragnaros has elected to stay top. It's relatively easy for you to double soak on Zeratul. It only takes you 2 Qs to clear pretty much any type of minion wave as long as you are auto attacking the melee minion the whole time. If you fail to auto attack the melee minions the whole time, it might take 1 or 2 seconds longer. After level 4 or so, pretty much till the end of the game, it will take you 2 Qs to clear any wave of any size. Right here we do have a small advantage coming in from the greater cleave in just a few seconds here, in that I'm able to hit both the melee minions and the range minions despite the fact that the wave is quite spread apart. This is important because the faster you can press Q, the faster you can get to your second Q, which allows you to rotate out ever so slightly quicker. I do take a lot of damage here, and it is important to note that Zeratul is one of the melee assassins who does not possess self-sustain until 13 at the earliest. Again, unlike an Illidan or a Kira, I don't have a way to natively restore HP, so it is important that I do not get chunked, especially in situations like this one where I can be invaded by the Eric Balog. I did see them a moment ago in the mid lane, and I am slightly worried they're going to invade, so what I'm going to opt to do here is, instead of lowering both the siege giants to low HP at the same time, which is more efficient, I'm going to lower one all the way to 0 and then start to auto attack the other one so that I have the option to potentially leash it and put the Eric and the Balog on the point while I punch them, have them punch the siege giant, and then punch them in order to win the trade, or alternatively just abandon it entirely if I feel like it's unwinnable. Fortunately, we are able to secure our siege giant without getting invaded. Lovely stuff for us. And in the top lane, it seems that my team is doing a relatively decent job of protecting themselves against the enemy threat push. We've only lost a tower so far and just a little bit of a tower damage, whereas in the bottom lane, I'm about to take an entire fort should the enemy team not respond correctly to this siege giant. It is very important to note that camps are a force multiplier, not a force in and of themselves, and when they are assisted by a minion wave such as a siege giant camp is right here, they can potentially just push all the way to the enemy core should they be completely unmolested. Now in this situation, the Olaf is able to do a minuscule amount of damage to my siege giants. I'm going to push my siege giants ever so slightly backwards to make it a little more difficult for Olaf to step up and auto attack them, and from here on out, all I really have to do is auto attack the Olaf and ignore the minion wave, as my siege giants will easily clear it with their AoE attacks. In order to replicate this scenario, you need to have the following 2 things. Number 1, you need a hyper dominant 1v1, such as a Phoenix into pretty much any melee in the game, an Illidan into an auto attacker, or in this case a Zeratul into an Olaf. And number 2, you need the enemy team to not have the ability or the incentive to rotate into your lane so that you're undisturbed while your camp gets immense value. A bruiser camp is more a shield to protect a minion wave, while a siege giant is the thing being protected, in that they are an artillery piece that deals an immense amount of damage to structure should they be left alone. I've actually gotten more value in the bottom lane than the entire enemy team's 4-man has been able to get in the top lane in much less time, thanks to the fact that our defensive trio of the Garrosh plus the Stukov plus the Hanzo are incredibly powerful at killing the enemy team and engaging a lot of threat. Fortunately for me, the Ragnaros has been dealing with the mid lane, so I've been free to just park myself in top and deal with these enemy fort. Opening up the map is incredibly useful for Zeratul, as it increases the radius at which you are allowed to roam and potentially find flanks on the enemy team. This is really important because we're VP, and a VP Zeratul plays exclusively around Void Prison, in that when you don't have Void Prison up, you simply don't fight. I do opt to trade a little bit of my health right here to ensure the fort dies a little bit faster, because I'm going to be leaving this lane. Olaf has no ability to set up a push whatsoever, so I know that he's not going to be able to take my bot towers without somebody doing that bot bruiser camp. Nobody can do that bot bruiser camp because the enemy team does not have bribe at level 1 on the TLV, and the enemy Sonya and Sylvanas are both in the top lane. Ragnaros finds a massive massive amount of damage onto Bela and Eric right here with his full combo, I'm able to blink forward and finish the two of them off. It's worth noting the Eric makes a slight mistake right here. He actually goes in a straight line to the left. I think had he just tanked one more auto attack and gone up or down, he would have been a little bit safer, because if you go in a straight line to the left, it is very easy to hit the W when he goes between the two structures, as that is a relatively small area for you to dodge within. We are able to find the fadeaway finish. Fantastic stuff right there. And we've successfully navigated through the early game on Zeratul. Lovely stuff for us. It's always important on Zeratul to give yourself as much out as you can in the early game. Avoid the enemy team if at all possible. Look for ganks, look for rotations, but primarily look for soak. Right here we do have an enemy bruiser camp that is empowered by the TLV steroid for the mercenary, so it is very important for us to start getting cleaves out on the bruiser camp. I don't have to auto attack the enemy minion wave at all here. I just need to put cleaves on the bruiser camp, and my AoE will happen to hit the rest of the minions and do enough damage. Very fortunately for us, the timing works out such that our minion wave is going to freeze the enemy bruiser camp just in front of our towers, which means the bruiser camp is going to take a ton of damage from our towers, and we are free to clear the rest of the wave without much threat. Unfortunately, our Ragnaros ends up using his lava wave in bot, which almost makes me want to cry after all the effort I just went through to make sure that bruiser camp gets cleared right away, but we picked up 10, so we have bigger things to worry about. At this point in time, I want to find an isolation onto the enemy team and potentially finish them off. I am trying to bait the frisbee right here from the Johanna. Had she played correctly, she actually could have killed me right there, but she didn't for whatever reason, so we're going to wormhole back in, isolate the Deckers so that he's not able to find his stay a while and listen, and then we're going to find the lovely Garrosh taunt onto the Sylvanas to finish things off. At this point in time, I noticed that Decker didn't have stay a while and listen, that he had actually opted for the Lornado, so that's one less thing for us to worry about this game. Sonya is going to beat the ever-living crap out of Hanzo and myself, and I'm just barely able to find the finish with my Stukov before I die. I was debating whether or not to tank that spear for the Hanzo and save him by sacrificing myself, but it felt like a mistake because I felt like I had more capability to kill the Sonya than he did, should either one of us be left alive. Fortunately, somehow my trio was able to find a 3v4 victory on the top left tribute and the top center tribute. So with the bottom left tribute, we are able to then take the objective and push with our plants. What do you call these things anyway? Shambling horrors? I don't know. I'm just going to fast forward on through the doldrums right here, as it is very important to note when you are Zeratul, and you are Q-Bill Zeratul in particular, you don't do anything without VP, so there's no point for you fighting when VP is down. A lesson which I'm about to learn very shortly when a Sylvanas shotgun arrows me on my blink in just a few moments here, and that is where I learned a couple of things. Number one, if I don't have VP, I shouldn't be looking. Number two, the enemy Sylvanas is willing to shotgun arrow me, which means I can potentially bait it out and trick her into wasting her ultimate if I simply blink forward and blink right out. However, you can't do that anymore. Why is that? Well, if you look right over here on Zeratul, we can note that Wormhole says after 1.25 seconds, you can reactivate Blink to return to the point. This was an intentional nerf by Blizzard after a specific HGC tournament where pretty much 100% pick and ban rate occurred for Zeratul in particular. So the thing you can do to alleviate this is, for example, if you want to go from here to here, what you're going to do is you're going to blink from here to here and then walk to here, stealthed, so the enemy team can't punch you. Then you'll cast your Q button, presumably with the level 16 CDR and damage increase, and then you'll immediately pop your blink to get you out of there. You can also use it to poke in situations like this structure by coming over from a blink such as from here to here, walk in, press Q, and then blink right out. And since it's 1.25 seconds, there's a very low amount of time where the enemy team can threaten you, since it'll take them a little bit of time after you appear to orient themselves and target you. It's worth noting that with an ability like Johanna's Frisbee and Wailing Arrow, it is extremely dangerous for me to go in that capacity. We're gonna rewind just a little bit right here to see the Deckard and the Sylvanas attempting to 2v2 the Hanzo and myself on the Bruiser camp. They've effectively ended up gifting us a Bruiser camp because they have so little HP relative to us. At this point, I realize that the Deckard and the Sylvanas are likely isolated on the left side, so I find the blink, I find the VP, and I ping like mad, praying that my team presses all of their buttons. I do end up dropping the VP a little bit earlier because I wanted to take advantage of the entire duration of the Stukov silence. I think in retrospect that was a mistake. Had I maximum duration the VP, the Hanzo arrow would have hit with perfect timing, and that potentially would have been more stun plus damage to more targets. But regardless, we're going to end up cleaning up the entire enemy team right here anyway, because they are retreating versus a Zeratul and a Ragnaros, and that is a very difficult thing to do when you are missing HP to begin with. The enemy Sonya, with Wrath running out, is trying to pump damage, but just isn't able to do so when her team dies so quickly. She's going to get herself out. I'm going to blink forward right here and try to find the body block. I just barely miss it. Had I found it just a little bit closer, there was a chance that my Garrosh right here was able to get his E back up, but now that I've checked the replay, I can see there was no chance that he gets sense that in time. It's not much of a loss for us to miss one kill at that point, because losing one more member doesn't do much for the enemy team. At this point in time, I'm going to check the bruiser camp because I know the TLV have been missing for quite a while, and I do see that they were attempting to steal with the 3 of them. Upon me appearing, they run away, despite the fact that they can beat me at this point in the game because I don't have my level 16 CDR damage steroid. It's very important to note that once you pick up that CDR and damage steroid, you must hit 2 targets with your Q in order to A, get the 3-second CDR, and B, get the 40% increased damage, which also affects rending cleave, which is a flat damage based off the amount of the initial Q. Nice thing to note right here is we have hit our level 16 power spike, and we've got VP coming up in 10 seconds. However, VP isn't up yet, so I don't want to take a fight. Right here, I do bait the Sylvanas into firing that shotgun arrow, so I am correct in my assumption that she is trying to kill me every single time with that arrow, and I'm about to hit the fattest VP of my career with a lovely 7-man, and the Johanna is going to even make it better by walking in, freezing herself, and we're going to find a fat arrows plus Stukov silence to confirm things right there. The enemy team made a major mistake by rotating into this choke. This choke is complete death for a large amount of people. They really should have backed off and found another route in, or at the very least played different flanks, but they ended up killing themselves, and I took advantage of that fully. This is something you can do quite easily as well with a VP. Simply shark around, wait on the flanks, don't engage first, just chill, wait for a counter engage, find a fat VP, and kill everything. This is really important mentality for anything that hasn't engaged, not just a Zeratul or a tank, but like the Hanzo can engage with the arrow, or the Stukov can engage with the virulent reaction, and so on and so forth. Pretty much every role has heroes that are able to lock down and set up large amounts of enemy heroes at the same time. For example, on the enemy team, the Deckard could easily do so with a stay a while and listen out of a bush. The Sonya could do so with a leap, and the Sylvanas can do so with that aforementioned wailing arrow. Now right here, I do take advantage of that blink tech to take a look at the enemy team, just to see what's going on their side of the field. Johanna is back up now, so it's a little more risky for me to do that without getting smashed with a frisbee, so I'm going to be a bit more cautious. I'm going to find the Q, and then I'm going to back right off because I don't want to get stunned by the level 16 talent on the Vikings, at which point I noticed that they don't have it. Lucky for me, I guess. It makes my life just a little bit easier. I don't have VP at this point in time, so all I'm really going to do is blink forward, cast Qs, and find auto attacks if I'm not going to get punched in return. I'm able to find a decent amount of damage onto the Sonya, but she wins this 1v1 very, very hard, so I do find myself running away quite quickly. At this point in time, our lava wave has arrived, and had I had VP, I could have locked down the enemy team and parked them right inside that lava wave. But unfortunately I didn't have it available. And the rest of this fight is going to be relatively uninteresting, given that both tanks are dead, so it's really just a slap fight. Sylvanas is going to find some damage onto the Ragnaros, who is going to get speared by the Sonya. I'm going to find some damage on the Sylvanas, and then we're all going to go home. We do find a nice chunk on the top side. I do blink forward here onto the Deckard plus the Sonya, trying to find a little bit of a finish. I do get my reset thanks to that Balog, and that is a really advantageous trade in this situation where TLV is opting more bodies for me to reset my level 16 Q with. I do throw a W there predictably, assuming that the wall was going to die before the enemy came in. And then I do blink right here. I notice that the Johanna comes up, so I blink out, and then she starts shading me with the Steed Mount. Fortunately for me, a minion wave arrives, which eats the frisbee that she was attempting to hit me with. We find a kill on the Sylvanas on the backside with our E-build Ragnaros, who is having a fantastic game thus far, and he's going to throw out the Molten Core just to lock things down entirely. Our Garrosh has responded at this point in time, and we finished off the enemy Sylvanas, so we're just able to rotate the game forward, and we're going to wait 40 seconds for our VP to come back up, and we're going to go forward. In order for you to replicate this gameplay, the most important thing for you to understand is that if VP is down, you don't want to take fights, and that if you are using the wormhole, you need to wait 1.25 seconds before you can reactivate it, so that 1.25 seconds you must be 100% safe. If there is any risk of you dying, it is generally incorrect to blink if you are really trying to win the game. Obviously, a Korean player will blink nonetheless just to apply pressure and run the assumption that my mechanics will allow me to carry the position where the thought process does not, but that's not necessarily a sentiment shared by every single region. A Korean pro will play differently from an EU pro, which will play differently from an NA pro, which will play different from China. The thought process varies depending on what region you're from. If you're from NA, you'll just AFK and do nothing. If you're from China, you'll fight 24/7, and then Korea and EU are somewhere in the middle of both of them. My VP was there to isolate the Deckard, who we were able to lock down and finally finish off right there, and we are able to take a keep with the help of our not web weaver, called something else that I just forgot. Lava Wave comes in right there. I thought I'd be able to find a cheeky finish onto the TLV with the help of the Lava Wave. Wasn't quite able to. And right here, I pinged to my team we should take 3 keeps instead of trying to finish off the enemy core, as it is very early into the game and we have only just hit level 20. Shadow Mending is a huge power spike for Zeratul, assuming you're able to hit 3 to 4 targets with each Q, as it effectively full bars you. It has been nerfed multiple times from 100% down to 75% and finally down to, I believe it is now sitting at 60%. Shadow Mending has been nerfed and nerfed and nerfed and nerfed because before it was absurdly overpowered to the point where if you hit a Q on 2 enemy heroes, it pretty much gave you half your bar back. It's much more reasonable at 60%, I think, but it's still at a point where it is powerful enough to allow you to hyper carry. Look at the Q right here. It full bars me instantly off of 3-man, and that rending cleave damage is also going to provide a few ticks of healing at the end. I don't have any mana at this point in time, so there's not much for me to do here besides Vorpal onto the Baylog, try to find a Q, and then walk away. I am going to overexert myself right here, chasing onto the Johanna. I do get stun staffed by the Deckard, and then I run down trying to escape the triangle, but that ends up pushing me into a central keep, which ends up killing me. Now is a wonderful time for us to talk about the game state. So far we've managed to do two things that are pretty miraculous. Number one, we've avoided taking significant building damage into a Sylvanas composition, and number two, we managed to get 3 tributes in a row right from level 1 to level 10. Because of that, we've steamrolled this game, and it is important to note that when you are in this position, and look at this lovely arrow coming in from this Hanzo right here, into the silence from the Stukov, massive combo right there, beautiful play by my team. It is important to note that when you are in this situation, the way to stay in the driver's seat is to ascertain that A, you do not face check bushes, because that is generally how these types of games are lost, and B, that whenever you fight, you do so in an advantageous situation and don't just needlessly A-ram into the enemy core the way my team is about to. Had my team just A-rammed into the enemy core, I think we would have wiped and potentially turned the game right there, but I pinged to them to take the keep, and fortunately they happened to listen to me, and they knock over 2 more structures. Taking those structures out guarantees that wave pressure is going to be ours for the rest of this game. At this point, we have 3 forts up, they have no 3 keeps, and it is effectively a checkmate. We can throw very, very hard from this point and still be virtually guaranteed to win the game. But of course, that's not enough to seal the deal. It's never over till it's over, and it is very easy to heavily turn games in Heroes of the Storm, especially with a hero like Sylvanas, who can chain the game, turning 1 kill into 1 structure, another kill into a keep, and another kill into a core. With a hero like Sonya as well, the enemy team has very significant pressure onto our core. It's worth noting at this point in time that the enemy Vikings have opted for the full auto attack build. I don't think I've literally ever seen that in my entire career, and I don't think I should ever see it again because it seems really terrible, unless a buff occurred that I'm completely unaware of. Decker does have the stun staff at 16 to try to deal with me, but because he didn't go stale while in this end, I just have no threat on the enemy team, and I'm able to play this game pretty freely. At this point, my VP is back up, so I can take a fight in any way, shape, or form that I want to. I get very fortunate right here. I almost threw the game right here, because if that Deckard in that bush had stepped up ever so slightly, he could have stun staffed me, made that into a Sylvanas ultimate, and potentially finished me. I wasn't even aware the Deckard was in that bush, nor was I aware that the Johanna was on that siege camp, so I played that very incorrectly. Right here is the moment where, had I been slightly less lucky, I think I would have thrown the game and potentially change things right there, but fortunately for me, I happen to not get stun staff, and I'm able to find a 4-man Q right there to heal me back up to full, and we're able to pretty much finish off the enemy team. I am avoiding talking about how bad that Void Prison was because it hurts my soul to think about how shit it was. If you have a hero like Zeratul and ultimates like Void Prison that are extremely lengthy cooldowns at 100 seconds, it's going to take many games for you to cast many Void Prisons to get to the point where you are very proficient with it. And I simply don't have the number of games on Zeratul to be able to execute that quite yet. But it is important to note that if you are in the situation where you are trying to get better at ultimates like that, at Leyline Seal, at fat ultimates that have long cooldowns, you need to rip the ultimate the second you think it's going to get value, because if you hesitate, you can't learn anything. Anyway, folks, that's going to do it today for me. This has been Zane Hyde. I hope you enjoyed the content. If you'd like to receive coaching from me and or Flame, you can check out the other videos on my channel, and you can check out my Patreon at patreon.com/ZaneHyde. Otherwise, folks, take care, stay safe, and we will see you in the Nexus.